All right, y'all. Welcome back. You know what it is. Episode 7 of Uncomfy Truths, the Uncomfy Truths official podcast. I am your co-host, Conservative Brother of Conservative Brother Daily, and I'm here with my main man, Conspiracy Brother. How you doing this evening, sir?
Hey, how you doing?
Lot to talk about. Lot to talk about. Good to see you, see your voice. That is, around here,
Yeah.
Fed's always watching. We gotta be a little careful. But we got a lot to talk about. We try and do these episodes at least bi-weekly, every 2 weeks. Definitely follow us on Rumble, as well as where else are we on right now, Conspiracy Brother? And we got a Rumble channel
So
going.
right now we're on Rumble and Odyssey. I haven't put us on YouTube yet, and that's really just because I feel like I could, but I just feel like YouTube really would probably put the hammer down on us real quick.
Yeah, shut the shit.
Russell Brand did a video not
Mhm.
long ago. He did a video not long ago where he said that ivermectin was being acknowledged as a cure, as a treatment for COVID.
Mhm.
It was added to the website, and it actually was being tested as a treatment.
Hmm.
And he made a correction like the next day or something, and struck his channel or whatever. And so he moved his video. He streams on Rumble every day
Mhm.
at 5 p.m. UK time, I believe. So I think it's 12 p.m. Eastern time, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Every day on Rumble, he streams his show an hour. And
Mhm.
to me, I mean, he was really upset about it, and it's honest. It's an honest critique of YouTube.
Mhm.
Because when you look at the way you can still find videos of different mainstream media sources like Rachel Maddow
Mhm.
uh, talking about how if you get the COVID shot, you won't get sick, you won't be able to transmit it to other people, you know.
Mhm.
Uh, and it's just like that's a lie. And not only do we know it's a lie anecdotally, but they've admitted it. And that video is still up, and nobody's hit their channel or nobody's forced them to put any kind of corrections. There's no, ticker or chyron in their
Mhm.
description box that says that what they're saying in the video is inaccurate scientifically or
Well,
medically. And so like there's just this is multiple levels or multiple layers or multiple tiers to the way that the mainstream media polices itself. And I would consider YouTube / Google / Alphabet a mainstream media outlet at this point, based on the way that they regulate and they disseminate information and the way that they work alongside the uh, the elite or mainstream establishment
mhm.
political system. And so, we could look at like Rockfin, we could look at BitChute, we could
Mhm.
look at
Brightsy.
Rumble, or I mean, not Rumble, but Locals. We could look at potentially going to Locals.
Mhm.
But for me, it's just like I haven't. YouTube has just not been a place I've been interested in trying to get into, because I feel like the kind of conversations we're trying to have, just honest, open discussions about
Mhm.
the nature of the world we live in,
Yeah.
and the people who control it or want to control it and us and what we do and think and say. Is really antithetical to the way YouTube is trying to run itself today. I think 10 years ago we would have been fine. uh,
Mhm.
YouTube used to be a great place for people like us to share our ideas and our thoughts and work together, but it's not that way anymore.
Well, that days are gone. Yep. So once again, Uncomfy Truths podcast. We are currently on Rumble. Playing around with Odyssey, and we are, just speaking out in existence. We're gonna get on local soon. I think also Brighteon. Brighteon's another one. In addition, it's actually run by Mike Adams of the Natural News. So that, along with I think another one you mentioned, most definitely, we aren't going anywhere. YouTube can't stop us. Can't stop, won't stop. All right. So our first article we have here, it comes from the Natural News. Mike Adams, a really great resource. He's a bit on the prepper side, but he's like all about freedom and definitely calls out a lot of what the Great Reset and the elitists are doing. So his articles really go in. So they censor him off of Twitter, and I've actually tried tweeting a few of his articles in the past, and literally Twitter will send you a thing like, "Oh, this is misinformation. This is violates our community." So I just copy and paste the shit and tweet it. So I'll copy and paste like half of his damn near the whole article. I'll just like I'll tweet it in the little bite-sized tweets, because they'll censor the article. But this comes from the Natural News. America likely sabotage Nord Stream pipelines to provoke Russia and make Europe more reliant on American natural gas. And what I love about Mike, he just calls it out as it is. There's no dancing around the subject. And Conspiracy Brother, I'd like you to kind of take this on. First, talk about what made you want to sort of bring this article up or this topic, and then we can kind of dive into the weeds on what the article says. So feel free to take it away on your thoughts on this very concerning development.
So, the recent development in the ongoing conflict or war, or as they would call it in Russia, the special military operation in the Ukraine, between Russia and the Ukraine, kind of took an interesting turn over this last week. The two Nord Stream.
I'm sorry, the music's still.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah, my bad.
So the two Nord Stream pipelines, Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2, were made inoperable. And it's been, I guess, I think either Germany or I think it was Germany has determined that it was sabotage. It was like state sabotage.
Oh,
right.
Wow.
How these pipes are located. They're located like in I guess in the Baltic. So they're not one of them. We'll read the article and then get down to the specifics, because I don't want to give too much false information just for the sake of clarity.
Whenever you're ready.
So that we can kind of understand what's going on. So I'll start.
Yeah, okay.
So, Natural News, the United States probably sabotaged the Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines to provoke Russia and make Europe more reliant on American natural gas exports. So that's the main crux of what a lot of people are understanding. But I think there's multiple layers to this, apart from gas exports, that would have provoked America to make this decision. Okay, so on Tuesday, September 27th, so last week, explosions occurred in the Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines in the Baltic Sea in Northern Europe. Following the explosions, gas began pouring out of 3 areas in the critical pipeline supplying Europe with Russian natural gas. The extent of the leak is still unclear, but rough estimates suggest that between 200,000 to 400,000 metric tons of methane may have spilled out of the pipelines before gas flows were halted. French scientist Jean-Francois Gaultier noted that just 250,000 metric tons of methane is equivalent to the exhaust of 1.3 million cars driven on the road for a whole year. Fox News' Tucker Carlson said President Joe Biden would be very interested in finding ways to hurt Russia. He aired clips of Biden and Department of State Undersecretary for Political Affairs Victoria Nuland, who is famously known to have been recorded secretly by the Russians, plotting to establish the political situation, like picking the president and all that shit in Ukraine, and also saying fuck the EU. So we know how she feels about the EU. Victoria Nuland from earlier this year suggesting that they would be willing to strike the Nord Stream pipelines if Russia attacked Ukraine. If Russia, quote, if Russia invades Ukraine one way or another, Nord Stream 2 will not move forward, end quote, warned Nuland back in late January. Quote, if Russia invades, then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it, end quote, said Biden back in February. Quote, I promise you, we will be able to do that, end quote. Related Nord Stream pipeline sabotage clearly orchestrated by ruthless Biden regime. Nuland, Biden, and Senator Johnson all demanded, quote, ending it permanently, end quote, by any means necessary.
You don't hold back.
America stands.
You don't hold back. He don't hold
No.
back, do it. You can tell he's just laying it out. You know.
America stands to benefit the most from sabotaging the Nord Stream pipelines, with Russia natural gas unable to enter Europe in sufficient quantities to shore up the continent's gas reserves for the winter. European nations will have to look for other exporters for natural gas, including the United States. Russia has very little to gain from sabotaging the pipelines. Gazprom, a Russian state-owned energy company, owns 51% of the Nord Stream pipelines, with the remaining 49% owned by European corporations. Russian officials themselves have pointed out that the U.S. stands to benefit the most from Russian gas being unable to enter Europe through the Nord Stream pipelines. Quote, who benefits from the pipeline's rupture? The answer is on the surface, end quote, noted the Russian embassy in Washington, D.C., in a statement strongly insinuating that the U.S. sabotaged the pipelines because America was unable to compete with Russian natural gas. Quote, unable to offer a decent alternative to reliable and not least of which cheap gas supplies, the United States decided to squeeze Russia as a competitor using non-commercial methods and sanctions, end quote, continued the Russian embassy. As the energy dispute between Russia and Europe continues, the U.S. dollar has strengthened. In this context, it would seem apparent that America would be very motivated to keep the dispute going and get the continent to become more reliant on American natural gas exports to prop up the continent's flailing currencies. The U.S. has already doubted the amount of liquefied natural gas it exports to Europe. Doubled the amount of liquefied natural gas it exports to Europe. During the first 4 months of 2022, 74% of American liquid natural gas exports went to Europe compared to an annual average of 34% last year. With the Nord Stream pipelines out of commission, U.S. natural gas exports to Europe will likely surge. More news on the energy crisis in Europe can be found in fuelsupply.news. So, one of the other interesting, because it certainly is, in my opinion, it certainly is important for the U.S. to be able to export gas. That's really one of the main issues that the U.S. has with Russia, with Western Europe, that Western Europe has had with Russia for at least 100 years, really going back over 100 years when Russia was still an empire. Russia, if you look at all other European countries, Russia is outsized. And with that outsized landmass and population and control, what that does is it threatens every other country. It threatens their sovereignty, or at least there's a perception of a threatened sovereignty. And so, through various ways throughout history, there have been attempts to split Russia up into 4 or 5 different countries and essentially control them from Western Europe. Russia is closer. America's issue with Russia is that Russia is closer to Europe. It has the opportunity to export goods and products at a cheaper level, at a more efficient time and energy level than the U.S. can to Europe. And so it can also exert influence over Europe in a way that America would like to. And so, like I talked about this in our group, when you look at peace, right? Let's say America and Russia and Europe and everybody's getting along. In a peaceful situation, who benefits? The consumer or the purchaser. Because, the producer produces, the consumer has the opportunity to make contracts. And so you can make them on your own terms, under your own, of your own volition, in your own self-interest or your nation's self-interest, and you do that. But when you have a country who's interested in exploitation or interested in controlling the resources of other countries, who are in controlling the internal politics of other countries, that doesn't work. That doesn't benefit. So the U.S. has to get involved. And so what this does, when you look at the gas reserves, right? This winter, there are already countries who have been cut off from receiving gas in Europe. Right. This is one of the reasons why you've seen the euro fall. If you wouldn't mind, you can pull up just right quick. I use the app. It's called XE. It's a currency exchange app. XE.
XE app.
Yeah, XE. The letter X, the letter E. Sorry.
Oh.
The letter X, the letter E. Yep, yep. X. Yep. And it's a currency. It's a currency. So you get to just see the rate of currency, the currency exchanges between the U.S. dollar or the British pound, and they should have a website that you can go to that you can check the exchanges.
There we go.
Right now. Yeah. So right now, so go to the charts. Right now, $1 US is worth about €1.02. And you haven't seen those numbers since about 2000. That's the last time that the US dollar had parity with the euro.
Right here. From US dollar to euro.
Right.
Is that it?
And so you get about at it was as high as $1.04 you'd get for $1 US. So right now it's at 101. So $1 US is worth about 102 because they'd round that up. So you'd get about 102 for $1. Look at the pound. The British pound has almost essentially been double the US dollar, probably going back 50 or 60 or 70 years or more. That it's been double the US dollar. And if you look now, it's almost 1-to-1. Look at the 10-year. You can even go to the chart and look at the 10-year. Look at the 10-year. Oh, yeah. And look at the 10-year.
10-year for the British pound?
Yeah. Yep. And you can just see the change in how that has fluctuated. In 14, so go to 2014. And you can see for $1, you were getting 58 pence in the UK in April of 2014. You were getting 58 pence
all the way up until
to
July.
the dollar. So that's 20. That's not 20. That's half. That's half the value. And now you're in a situation where it had gotten up as high as 95. So it was almost 1-to-1. Because European countries, the Western European countries, don't produce anything. Russia has gas. Russia has grain. Russia has precious metals, rare earth metals. They produce fertilizer. So you've seen the price of food. And so this is when you get into World Economic Forum, right? And you try to figure out why this is happening. And I know I hope I'm going to try to stay on track. So don't let me get off on a tangent. But we were talking about the Nord Stream. Yeah. Right. So you couple the fact that they're sanctioning Russia, right? So the U.S. is still a very self-sufficient country. Even though we import a lot of goods and products, we do it by choice, not out of necessity. Right? We can still produce our own petroleum, our own natural gas, our own fertilizers, and all these different products if we wanted to. Now, there are some rare earth metals that we don't have. So when it comes to like certain chip manufacturing or lithium for batteries, we don't have some of those metals. But America is still okay. Western Europe, they don't have this stuff. They don't have the gas. They don't have the space to produce the grain at that level for the price that they pay. They don't have the oil for the petroleum. They don't have these things. They don't have it. They just don't have the minerals. They don't have any of the stuff. And so what happens is when you look at the World Economic Forum and the way that they have laid out through the Great Reset, that you'll own nothing. They want you to eat bugs. They want you to stop eating meat. They want you to stop driving cars, right? They want to essentially deindustrialize the world for the green energy, whatever, right? You have created a situation where you are pricing people out of living in their own countries. You see in the Netherlands, right, with the farmer protests, where they're telling farmers that they have to sell their farms or pay fines if they produce more carbon or more carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide or something over a certain amount. And some of these are multi-generational farms. Holland, the Netherlands is one of the biggest food producers in the European Union. So factor that into, even in the US, you've seen all these different food storage warehouses around the world being burned down. How do you drive up the price of food? How do you drive up the cost of things? Right? You get rid of fertilizer, so you drive up the price of food. You get rid of farms, you drive up the price of food. Right? You create these artificial limitations or limits on producers, on farmers, on fishermen, or whatever. And then this is what happens. And so they are able to continue to take control of the situation from a problem that they created. And so with the Nord Stream, what this does is it forces Western Europe into a greater bind. When this whole situation first came out with the sanctions, I wondered if the U.S. was more interested in hurting Russia or hurting Western Europe. I couldn't tell. And even now, I'm not sure. But what you see is Russia has no interest. There's no, the article didn't go into as great a detail as some of the other sources you might find, but it laid out in a lot of good ways that Russia doesn't benefit from sabotaging these pipelines. They're both in the Baltic. One goes through Nord Stream 1 goes through Ukraine and goes into Germany and Poland and stuff, and you get gas from there. And Nord Stream 2 would connect from the Baltic, from Russia directly to Germany, if I'm not mistaken. So it cuts out the middleman of Ukraine. And so Germany's having a particularly tough time. It is the strongest economy in Europe, and is one of the greatest competitors to the United States as far as industrial economies is concerned. And so what U.S. is doing is it's hurting its own allies in Germany, and it's also strengthening its own currency and its own position in the geopolitical its geopolitical position, because it is weakening a competitor, right? An ally and a competitor. And this is what I'm saying about when you have a world of peace. How do you have if we're all friends and we all need the same things? We live in a system where there's only $10. We all need $10, and there's only one $10 bill, and we're all friends, and we all legitimately want what's for each other. How do we go about getting $10?
Right.
You have to resort to this kind of cunning skullduggery. And so this is what you see. Russia absolutely has nothing to benefit from destroying its own pipeline.
Yeah.
Just from a leverage point of view, because Russia could have turned that off at any point. But now what is happening, like I said, remember Nuland on the recording says, fuck the EU. She has no interest. These people, these neoliberals and neoconservatives have no interest in what's best for the American people, for the European people. They're pure ideologues. They are beholden to this idea of American exceptionalism at all costs and American imperialism and hegemony at all costs, right? So they don't believe, even in, when you look at a guy like Henry Kissinger, who I would say 90% of what 99% of what he has done, I would disagree with.
Right.
He still understood the art of diplomacy, right? He understood that there was a give and take in international discussions. These new people who have only ever used computer models and polls and hanging around the same peer group of pampered, half brain dead, Ivy League elite, suburban, raised individuals.
Yep.
They don't have any real world concept of diplomacy, they believe that might makes right, but in a different way. They believe, and this is, on the left, they believe, like the expression, the road to hell is paved with good intention. They believe that they have the right of morality on their side. And so they do what they want. The neoconservatives still believe that American imperialism and the ends justify the means is the answer for the day. And so you see this situation unfolding as it has. I mean, I don't know if you have any you want to say about it or.
Yeah. I mean, you pretty much summed it up. And once again, especially with the left, they just kind of live by feelings. They look at how the world should be. Yes, we should have this. Yes, people should think like this and do that. But once again, I've talked about this time and time again. These bleeding heart liberals and their do-gooderness, it blinds them to what bad people can do to manipulate them. Everything you spoke on about U.S. and Russia, there's not much more that can be said. And we're just keep poking at the bear. We keep poking at this hornet's nest. And I think a lot of people don't realize, like, once again, Russia, I believe, is second in the most nuclear missiles and the pretty much the largest artillery in the world as far as power, just behind the U.S. Or Russia just might almost be lined up with us. So it's just very. And then another thing a lot of people don't realize too, I know there's maybe been a few exceptions in history, but most of the time during a time of war, that scares a lot of the public, and they're a little. It kind of dissuades them from voting for another president or a different president. Look back, through Bush, Obama. People tend to want to stick with whoever is currently running the country at times of war. It's not always the case. But I feel like that may have a little bit to do with it. Biden and the Democrats, gunning for war with Russia and just being the all-time number one instigators. And I was listening to, I think, Dave Smith's libertarian comedian. He was on Andy Frisella's Rilla's AF podcast and also recently on Joe Rogan. And I think a great point he mentioned is just the fact that I'm trying to think when it just comes to when it comes to our U.S., our mentality, we're delivering democracy or freedom, that kind of comes in the hands with bombing other people's children and doing all this other crap. And then the other foreign countries are looking at us like we're crazy. We're like, yeah, we're doing all this for freedom. And they're like, we ain't about that life. And even go back to even 9/11, even going back to Osama bin Laden. Of course, everybody painted him as a main terrorist. And a lot of people, I mean, you and me, conspiracy brother, know this, but those of you out there tuning into Uncomfy Truths, with your host, conservative brother, conspiracy brother, you may not know this, but Osama didn't orchestrate the 9/11 attacks because he hates us because we're free. Because remember, they kept kind of ringing that over and over again, like the whole propaganda post 9/11, before we invaded Middle East was, well, he hates us because we're free. No. Osama bin Laden attacked us for 4 reasons, which he actually outlined in a video, kind of similar to what Putin was kind of lining up with. All right, so Osama basically attacked us because, did 9/11 because the U.S. murdered innocent civilians in the Muslim communities. He attacked us because the U.S., we propped up brutal dictators in the Muslim world. Osama also hated us because the U.S. propped up Israel, who mistreats the Palestinian people. And then fourthly, the U.S. keeps U.S. bases in their holy land in the Arabian Peninsula. Now, does some of this sound familiar to maybe a certain, leader over in Russia? Yeah, Putin. Because he did the same thing. He addressed a few months ago about why he didn't want, he was, invading Ukraine. And guess what? It was because he didn't want Ukraine to join NATO. He warned against it. And over the past 10 years, 8 years, they did that little coup in 2014. They're just kind of egging him on. And, and then finally, you got NATO, you got Ukrainian bases, which we found out they were conducting all types of experiments in. You basically got Ukraine bases on the border. You got NATO bases. I think it was NATO bases on the border of Ukraine that borders into Russia. And think about it. Would you want to have the Chinese Communist Party to have bases on the border of Mexico pointing at the U.S.? Absolutely not. So I think this is just, once again, one of those things where people need to go back and remember, because people don't have memories. So they're not thinking about, what happened 6 months ago, 12 months ago. They tell you one thing and the other. Because once again, let alone 10, 20 years ago. So I'm seeing very disturbing parallels between what they did with Gaddafi, with Saddam, where they build these leaders up, and then as soon as they want to go off the petrodollar, go off the U.S.'s agenda, their public enemy number one, Saddam, dead. Osama, dead. Gaddafi, dead. And now they're playing these same tricks they've done time and time again over to Putin. All right, so moving on. Our next article: students fight for gender-neutral homecoming court. All right, so in Harrelson Township, Michigan, a fight for inclusivity is in disappointment for a student at Land Cruz High School. A 12th grader and her mom have been pushing to make homecoming court gender-neutral since July. Now, let's just stop right here. I think we kind of know what to expect. I'm going to still keep reading the article. But Conspiracy Brother, it gets to the point where people, at least the LGBTQ community, once again, people, if they're over 18, they can make their own decision. They want to change their bodies. They want to be called she, him. That's fine. But you have it where you not only have these minors they've kind of been brainwashed into this entitlement. I do what I feel. I think I'm a woman now, or whatever it is. And now the mother, obviously, she ate it all up. She wants to be as progressive as she can, and she thinks she's morally superior doing what she's supposed to do. But this is where I kind of I usually take the side of the parent, but now you have reverse indoctrination where it's the school that's not woke fighting against these woke students and this mother. But I'll just continue reading. At a school board meeting Monday, officials denied her request. Shelby Dara wanted the opportunity to win homecoming court with her non-binary partner. She and her mom pleaded their cases as the board members discussed behind closed doors. The board decided it was too late to change the rules. Shelby and Elma are leaders at the high school. They're in the high-profile positions in the district, honor students, drum majors in the band program. They are the faces of Land Cruz's most successful program, Dara's mom, Jennifer, said. The same-sex couple was over the moon when they were each nominated for homecoming court. Shelby Dara identifies as female, and Mercelovic identifies as non-binary. My partner goes by they, them, which means they are not necessarily under either gender, which means they'd rather run for either title. Yep. So once again, guys, our Conspiracy Brother, you smell the special privilege, I want entitlement. This isn't equality. You're not in the civil rights era, So I'm going to keep going, but anything you want to add, Conspiracy Brother, as I continue the article?
Well, yeah. So what I think is interesting, because I read this, is I get you want to be included and every that's cool or whatever, but if your child is not within this whole gender thing, I think a lot of this is just like high school kids trying to do fads, and I think a lot of it is even like social pressure.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a social indoctrination.
Yep.
And if that's what you want your kids to do, that at home. When you're at home, you can make them the prom queen and the prom they them.
Yep.
Because I don't know what you would what do you call this person if they win? I mean, because they're not a he or a she, they're a they or a them. So I don't even see why you want to participate in this. It's just so strange to me that all of a sudden we have seen this rise that has come, from it just being, okay, we just want to be treated equally from the same-sex marriage stuff and, gay rights. And to now, you get gay marriage legalized. And now you see this is really exponentially further down the road than I think any of us had ever expected. I consider myself an accelerationist to some degree with some of this stuff. Like, I'd like it to keep going because I think it'll eventually burn itself out. But the issue is every time I think it accelerates, to a point where it's going to stop, something new happens that replaces it that's worse. So
like his damn weeds. You chop 3 dandelions, 5 pop up in his place.
right.
So yeah, man. So I'll continue. Um, my partner goes by they, them, which is not necessarily be the gender. Currently, land cruise policy allows males to be king and females to be queen. Shelby and her mom have repeatedly asked the district to reconsider. Once again, they just can't take no for an answer. It's my way or the highway. They kind of feel like they're fighting for some sort of right. They're kind of convinced themselves this is the new civil
Still
rights
there?
movement. But then again, what's that? Oh, what was that? Hello? Conspiracy brother? All right, yeah, I was saying I think we're still recording. Can you hear me? No, I think we're getting censored live, y'all. They can't hold us down. But basically what I was saying is that they think, you can't just I can't just one day wake up. I identify as white, even though I think the transracial that's probably coming. There's been cases of it. People are gonna try and do it. If a 40-year-old can all of a sudden identify, and I'm a 12-year-old girl, I'm pretty sure this transracial stuff where people all of a sudden identify as a black person. I'm sure that's coming up the pipe. But you can't really just you really just gonna jump into your skin and just somebody else's skin and just be black. So I think this is kind of along the same terms of insanity. How one man could just identify and say they're a woman. You can do that. That could be your world, but you're crazy. Same way as a white dude just come up and say, "Oh, I identify as a black guy. What up, my nigga?" He getting popped in the face. So it's really, I think those parallels are the same. Just as you wouldn't all of a sudden wake up and say, "I identify, I'm a white guy or a black guy now." To do this whole gender identity thing, it's just ridiculous. That can be your own little story or experience, but what gets me is the whole we got to enforce it and impose it on everybody or every institution I go to. I'm offended if anybody even thinks of making me identify as anything else or can't acknowledge my you know sort of thing. So to continue, he just said it's out of my power. I don't think we can do it. North is Land Cruise's sister high school, according to an email from an employee, Jennifer Darby. They already had a gender-neutral homecoming court. Jennifer Darby says the lack of response for her daughter's school was disheartening. It is very disappointing. I am an alumni here. It's always proud to be an alumni, blah, blah, blah. So I'll wait for conservative brother to come back. But basically, yeah, it's just kind of more of the same. And you can't just decide, you know what, this is my truth, and everybody has to bend to my will. All right, so that's just what's sort of disturbing to me about this. And the mother, of course, is just eating it all up. All right, so that's that article right here. See what else we got going on. So conspiracy brother gets back. Um, All right. So, okay, cool. So, what I'm gonna do actually, because I did a couple of these articles before, so conspiracy brother gets back, I'm gonna pop on to a new one. So let's see here. Liz Cheney. Let's see what she's up to. Still pouting about. Apparently, with Hurricane Ivan, they put the little January 6th comedian on hold. I thought the ratings were high anyway. I'm sure they were probably getting local access numbers. Liz Cheney, shocker. Liz Cheney says she will not remain a Republican if Donald Trump is a GOP nominee in 2024. So this once again goes back to, Republicans I'm finding that they're finding more relevance in simply being like, you know what, I'm going to just start speaking out against Republicans or, I'm just going to earn brownie points with my Democrats. They're like, yeah, you're a good little Democrat, and they'll pat you on the head and you get a little dog treat. But that's sort of where we're at now, especially with, once again, do I agree on everything Donald Trump says? Am I like a Trump supporter? Am I all that? No. But I think Liz is able to earn these points and build her platform off of just riding January 6th, Donald Trump, and all that stuff. All right, so Wyoming, here we got Wyoming Rep. Liz Cheney said at a Texas Tribune festival Saturday that if former President Donald Trump becomes Republican Party's nominee in 2024, she will not remain a Republican. Yeah, I'm going to make sure Donald Trump, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure he is not a nominee. And if he's a nominee, I won't be a Republican. You'll be missed. Cheney also said she will campaign for Democrats to ensure that Republican candidates who promote election lies do not get elected. All right. Hold on a second, guys. Cheney also said, Cheney was talking about the Arizona gubernatorial race. And how she will work to ensure the GOP nominee Carrie Lake, the former television journalist who has become a leading voice behind Trump's lies about election fraud, does not get elected. Yep. Y'all can hear me texting. Read ahead for me. All right. All 5 of you across the world watching. All right. All right. When asked, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure Carrie Lake is not elected. Wow, she's just really. You never really hear, like, even on the Democrat Republican side, I'm gonna do everything I can to make sure that so and so isn't. She's just getting paid, I'm sure, dark money to run this agenda and just to be sort of the Republican wrestler or the Republican sheepdog. If I just want to round up all these Republicans, I'm going to do everything we can to make sure Carrie Lake is not elected. When asked if that includes campaigning for Democrats, Cheney said yes. But Cheney would not go as far as saying she wants Democrats to keep control of the House Representatives for midterm elections. Cheney said there's a lot of bad policies in Biden administration. But I think it's really important, though, as voters are going to vote, that they recognize and understand the Republican conference consists of the House of Representatives today. Cheney's primary loss against Trump-backed Harry Hageman last month represented a significant marker in the wider fight over the direction of the Republican Party. Once considered an up-and-comer, Cheney was booted from the House GOP leadership last year over her unyielding position to the former president. She trailed in polling back home this year. She helped lead the House Select Committee investigating the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol. Fun fact, guys, those of you guys that think that it was this horrible disaster where 4 or 5 police officers got killed, only one person got killed. That was one of the January 6 protesters shot by a Capitol police officer. Her name was Ashley Babbitt. And as people were, let into the Capitol, as some of them were kind of, just sort of walking through there, other people were being rowdy. Ashley Babbitt was the one telling them to stop. She was telling them to get away from the door, get away from the glass. Then the Capitol police officer just shot through the door and killed her. So those guys are like, oh my God, it was such a travesty. It was a new 9/11, and all that stuff. Well, just remember that one person who died was a January 6th protester, and the Capitol Police killed her. And basically, there have been so many people that died. There was like a 9/11 maybe every week or two from all the people that died from COVID because your precious Fauci and all these elitists denied them the early treatment, the ivermectin and the HCQ. Those were 9/11s of Americans dying all over the country for about a year. But you won't hear nothing about that. Just stay in your little sheep corner and just keep drinking the Kool-Aid. But as questions about her future political moves loom, Cheney continued to dodge the question of whether she will run for president in 2024. It's not about me or making a decision about what I'm going to do, she said. I will certainly will do whatever it takes to make sure Donald Trump isn't anywhere close to the Oval Office. So it's just this weird, like, Trump derangement syndrome. I'll talk about this, goes both ways. Trump derangement syndrome is these people that are just never Trumpers. They just can't. They just live in fear of Trump. It's always on their mind. He is such a small component of what's going on. If you knew all the strings that are happening, so you keep Donald Trump with this red herring or orange herring, if you will. He's this orange herring that's keeping you distracted, riled up, and going, and just keeping you managed and herded in the direction they want you to. All right. So you got the far left just afraid of Trump, and they think everything's going to go back to normal when Trump is in jail. All right. And I'm also going to call out the people on the other side, the Trump cult, the Trump supporters, and make America great again. They think Trump is going to roll in on a white horse, save the day. Once Trump's back in office, everything's going to go back to normal. And you guys are in for a rude awakening as well. This is so beyond Trump. Even if he went back in office, there's a lot that he won't be able to do. And he's really just getting set up to be the fall guy for the vaccine. Between now and the 2024 election, you're going to have them coming out, and they're not going to be able to censor the vaccine death data any longer that Pfizer was hiding. They wanted to hide it for 75 years. So that's going to eventually come out, and they're setting up Trump to be the whole scapegoat. It's going to become Trump's vaccine. Trump rushed it. He tried to get it out. And actually, they were promoting and just lauding the vaccine as soon as Trump left office. But before, it was, oh my God, Trump's vaccine. Oh my God, oh no. Oh, Biden's in office. Oh my God, this vaccine is amazing. So a lot of people, of course, don't remember that. You can't remember the headline from 2 weeks ago. So let's just put all that in perspective. And Cheney's just basically able to profit off of her sort of Republican bashing, but we know both sides are full of it. Cheney's advisors previously told CNN, she intends to wait until next year to make any decisions on whether when she's no longer in Congress or serving as vice chair of the House January 6th committee. She is cognizant of appearing to politicize the findings of the committee. However, her role on the select committee comes with the kind of spotlight that other Republican Trump critics have struggled to find. Cheney will confront the same challenge when she departs office in January. The president candidacy could only be the only way to address it. On whether the House January 6th committee will hold its next hearing next week. Next, we'll speak with Trump before his investigation concludes. Let me say that any interaction with Donald Trump has with the committee will be under oath and subject to penalties of perjury. Where she stands between the committee and legal counsel, former President Mike Pence. She says Pence has an obligation to speak with the committee. While she respects executive privilege, she believes this type of privilege is not absolute. Cheney said the committee has not made a decision on whether to make a criminal referral to the DOJ based on the panel's discussion. But when the time does come to make that decision, she believes it will be unanimous. So we got this whole little kangaroo court, January 6th. Just headache to hear about this. But she did share that the committee has received approximately 800,000 pages from the Secret Service in response to a subpoena, and reiterated that the documents contain a lot of new information on whether the text messages from certain Secret Service agents are gone from the day before and during the Capitol attack. Cheney said the text messages in many cases are gone. There are other forms of communication like team messages and emails and any other communication we have received. Probably about 800,000 pages. Cheney was also asked to share a memorable moment with her father, former President Dick Cheney, since the Capitol attack, and shared that on New Year's Day. She left her house, defend the Republic daughter, and she said it was a moment she would never forget. It's just a headache. All right, welcome back to Uncomfy Truths Podcast. I am your co-host, Conservative Brother Daily. Feel free to follow me on Rumble and YouTube. And also, we got Conspiracy Brother back. How you doing, good sir?
Hey,
Mhm.
I don't know what happened, but
Hey, no worries. No
all of
worries
a
at
sudden I
all,
went
man.
out.
We just chugging right along. I figure we just get moving on to the next topic. We have Canada won't require masks on planes. They dropped their vaccine mandate. This was really surprising news. Um, don't jump for joy yet, but once again, as you guys know, Canada has some of the strictest vaccine and mask mandates, especially with that little Castro Jr. lookalike, uh, Justin Trudeau, aka Castro Jr., being a complete tyrant. So I'm surprised he went along with this as well. But it's kind of one of those things where we're letting the little simpletons, the peasants breathe a little bit before we put our foot on the gas with something else. So I'm not like, gonna just take a sigh of relief because we all know what's coming up the pike. So I'll read a little bit. The Canadian government will no longer require people to wear masks on planes. Government officials also confirmed Canada is dropping the vaccine requirement for people entering the country at the end of the month. Canada, like the U.S., requires foreign nationals to be vaccinated to enter the country. No change in the mandate is expected in the U.S. in the near term. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has agreed to let a cabinet order enforcing the mandatory COVID vax requirements at the border expire September 30th. And we'll see about a new lockdown, a climate lockdown, or EMP hits us before that. Transport Canada is also removing the travel requirements as of October 1st. People want to wear masks on trains and planes. So, conspiracy brother, can I get your thoughts on this new development? Are we out? Are we in the clear, or is it just a
I'm
little
sure there'll be something
false
else.
flag?
I'm sure there'll be something else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm almost positive that there will be something else that'll come. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I think this must be a distraction from whatever else, because there was something here. They just dropped something, um, and I think a lot of that has to do. Oh, well, we were talking earlier about Russell Brand, but
Mm-hmm.
the NIH now has ivermectin listed as a that they're studying whether or not it's an effective treatment for COVID. And so, for me, what I think about all this
Mm-hmm.
is like you weren't testing that before. How were you so sure that it didn't work? Why were you so quick to demonize people who were trying it, who claimed that they had success with using it? Like Joe Rogan and all these other people who claim that they felt better after taking it. You know, a drug that had won the Nobel Prize in science, a drug that had been around for 50 years or so. I mean, this, the fact that they've had this order in place and the U.S. still has it in place this long is really laughable on its face because the vaccines don't prevent spread, they don't prevent infection. They don't prevent severe infection. They don't prevent death. They don't prevent, you know what I'm saying? They don't prevent any of this stuff. And there has been some evidence to show that they may even be weakening people's immune system. They try to call it rebound now, and they said even that Paxlovid pill or whatever, that you may even be more susceptible to it after being vaccinated than if you're not vaccinated. That it may weaken your immune system in some way, that myocarditis, the other symptoms that have come up through the VAERS program, you know, so I would say it's about time, but I'm still wary of Canada. I do want to go back and visit. It's just nice to go somewhere. At least our money's worth more now, so that should be nice. We can go and kind of get stuff cheaply over there again like we used to. But I mean, it still puts a very sour taste in my mouth because he's very much an authoritarian. He's very much a puppet of the WEF. We talked last show about how his essentially the deputy prime minister is a neo-Nazi, well, not even a neo-Nazi. She's an old school Nazi sympathizer. WEF, Young Global Leaders, trainee, Klaus Schwab underling, and so I don't know if I feel as comfortable and safe going to that country as I used to, because now I feel like I'm being watched at every turn, because they watch their own citizens at every turn. And we know that because when the trucker protest was going on, they were suspending and freezing bank accounts. They were freezing bank accounts to be donated. When they had that protest at the Ambassador Bridge, the police came and they dispersed the crowd using overly aggressive tactics, force, and violence. So, it still puts a sour taste in my mouth. There are still a lot of Canadians who agree with this prime minister, as evidenced by the fact that he was reelected, that he was able to build a coalition with the New Democratic Party. And so it's very disheartening. It's about time, but it's very disheartening that it came to this point this long ago. So that's my piece of it.
Yeah, great stuff, great stuff. And Conspiracy Brother, you were your audio was a little, it was kind of like echoing a bit, and then was a little staticky. So I'm not sure if that was maybe some of the internet going on. I was able to gather most of it for the most part, and you brought us some really good points. Like, definitely, not only does it leave a sour taste in our mouths, but of course, with all COVID and all this stuff, I wasn't thinking about going to Canada anytime soon, and you just never quite know. Obviously, I might go over there for a weekend or something like that. But definitely wouldn't stay there long, because they are pretty much right behind a lot of these other, like New Zealand and Australia, and it just really goes to show you, when people show you who they are, believe them. And unfortunately, like, even way back in 2013, Trudeau like publicly lauded the Chinese Communist Party, and if anything, I could think of anything that was a great influence, was China. I think how they do their citizens, I think, is great. And you can just see it, the smugness, and people laughed like, "Oh, he must be kidding! Ha 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 ha!" No, he was serious. And a lot of these Canadians, of course, once again, you're too nice for your own good. And that's kind of how you guys are, and this is what you get. You get a dictator in there, so just very, definitely got to keep tabs on Canada. I won't be going anytime soon, unless maybe it's for a quick weekend, some weekend getaway, but I'll be in and out. All right, so we're coming up towards the top of the hour. Our last article we're going to end today, Woody Harrelson on trusting Big Pharm and good big government during the pandemic. The last people I would trust is with my health. So this is a very kind of short, almost like a PR release read. But I did listen to this interview. Those of you guys that obviously follow Bill Maher, of Politically Incorrect, that was his NBC panel show in the 90s, ran from like early 90s to 94 to maybe like 02. And I think Bill Maher, I got to credit him, man. He was really the first one to get canceled, literally. Not only just his show got canceled, but they tried to cancel him, the whole mob. And a lot of it was because some very real statements he made about, like, hey, we drop bombs over there, we kill their children, or something along these effects, and we call them the terrorists. And that got his show booted off of NBC 2002, in the wake of the 9/11 attacks. So he went on a year later to start Real Time with Bill Maher with HBO, and the rest is history. He's going to be celebrating 20 years coming up next year. But Bill Maher recently started this podcast. I don't know, Conspiracy Brother, how familiar you are. He started just like a podcast that initially was supposed to be non-politics. It's called Club Random. He's trying to kind of do the little Joe Rogan thing, laid back. He records it in his man cave at home. They smoke, drink, all that sort of stuff. It can't be Joe Rogan's show. But it's still like a nice little alternative. They try and keep it more light topics. They don't have to go straight into politics, but of course it touches on that. Conspiracy Bro, I don't know if you listened to the episode, but very briefly, While talking with Bill Maher, Woody Harrelson comments on big pharma and big government and his feeling that neither one prioritizes a person's health for money. Oh, I wonder who said that before. I wonder who's been saying that for a while. A lot of other different people. Um, and his feeling neither one prioritizes a person's health for money. Harrelson, most people would not normally trust the government with helping them, like what the government actually do to help you. Mar, and they don't trust the help. Harrelson, they help the big corporations industry, all the people that got you, got those people in the Congress that will become president. Those all those people all got to get taken care of. Mar, I don't trust the CDC. They don't trust the CDC. Americans, we have the polling on it. Harrelson, is that true? Mar, yes, it's true. Okay, here's the CDC promoting that we do all these things, right? I just don't like the profiteering in war. Think of the billions of dollars that have gone to big pharma. But I was getting back to my original point. The last people I would trust with my health is big pharma and big government because neither one of those strikes me as carrying entities. Oh, the comment. This is the shortest article I've ever read, but still, conspiracy brother. Give us your thoughts on at least Woody Harrelson's recent comments. Very telling.
So it's actually pretty good because I wanted you to bring up something. I remember the second thing I wanted to. The second, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Good. You good. You clear.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the second thing I wanted you to look up is go to like the Encyclopedia Britannica and look up fascism, so we can just kind of.
About to go in the weeds. All right.
Yeah, I just like us to see fascism, because it was essentially a term that was created and popularized by Benito Mussolini, the dictator, the fascist dictator, leader of Italy, one of the members of the Axis of Evil. It's always funny how the U.S. Oh wow, they don't even have a.
Oh, it's right here. Of course, they probably little big tech woke nerds probably went in here like Wikipedia, changed some things around 3 a.m. in the morning. Okay. But either way, yeah.
So, fascism is a political ideology and mass movement that dominated many parts of Central, Southern, and Eastern Europe between 1919 and 1945, and that also had adherents in Western Europe, the United States, South Africa, Japan, Latin America, and the Middle East. Europe's first fascist leader, Benito Mussolini, took the name of his party from the Latin word fascis, which referred to a bundle of elm or birch rods, usually containing an axe, used as a symbol of penal authority in ancient Rome. So you've seen that symbol in the Senate. Although fascist parties and movements differed significantly from one to another, they had many characteristics in common, including extreme militaristic nationalism, contempt for electoral democracy, and political and cultural liberalism, a belief in natural social hierarchy and the rule of elites, and the desire to create a Volksgemeinschaft, German people's community in which individual interests would be subordinated to the good of the nation. So let's see. Let's see if we can find, because I'd like to find Mussolini's definition. So we may have to go to Wikipedia, but let's see if we can scroll down because
I can click on Mussolini.
Okay, well, try that because Mussolini had a very specific definition of the term that did not involve what that Encyclopedia Britannica just said. And so,
what about this? All right, try this right here. What about this right here?
Let's see. So no, that's not it. Let's see. Keep going. Because I know the answer, but I'd like to read it so that we could.
Go Wikipedia.
Yeah, go to Wikipedia. Let's go to Wikipedia.
Copy and paste.
They want you to buy those books. They want you to subscribe. Man.
Yeah. They're not coming to your house door to door anymore selling them.
Right.
They don't, all digital, I'm sure. Back in the day, door to door. Kids today, all they know is the internet. They ain't never opened a encyclopedia in a library. They don't know the pain.
Okay.
All right.
You
Yeah,
could
that's
just type
loading.
in fascism here. Yeah.
You just want me to type in the fascism?
Yeah, you could just type in fascism. Yep.
All right. Computer's slowing up a bit. All right. There's a lot of them. Which one? The Italy
The
one?
first one as a political ideology.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. Um, okay. So let's see. So scroll down to definitions. So historical and political historian trying to nail jelly to the wall. So they said they're trying to kind of define fascism, right? And it says historians, political scientists, and other scholars have long debated the exact nature of fascism. Historian Ian Kershaw once wrote that trying to define fascism is like trying to nail jelly to a wall. Each different group described as fascist has at least some unique elements, and many definitions of fascism have been criticized as either too broad or too narrow. According to many scholars, fascism, especially once in power, it has historically attacked communism, conservatism, and parliamentary liberalism, attracting support primarily from the far right, frequently cited as a standard definition by notable scholars such as Roger Griffin, blah, 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 blah. So still not seeing it, but I'll just say Mussolini defined fascism as a relationship between industry and politics.
Mm.
When the corporation and the political class come together, that's fascism. That's what he called it. It wasn't necessarily about authoritarianism. It wasn't necessarily about totalitarianism or any of this other, one party or far right. Those are the intricacies that they try to use to create this very narrow, because I think that tries to create a narrow view of fascism is this, right? Fascism is Hitler. Fascism is Mussolini. Fascism is Trump. That's what they tried. That's the intention. When you understand fascism as a synergy between the corporate state and the political state, you understand that we live in a fascist system in America. Mm-hmm. A system wherein a corporation, Big Pharma, mm-hmm. and Big Tech, and the government can constrain our lives in such a way that we can't work, we can't say certain things online, we can't go outside our houses, we can't travel, we can't do anything without approval. That's fascism. That you are forced to take a medical procedure, what do you call it?
Jab.
Well, yes, but it's an untested medical procedure against your will, mm-hmm. or be punished or be shunned from society. That's fascism. We always try to look at all these different political ideologies in one way. Communism is Stalin. Communism is Lenin. Communism is this. No, it's not. Communism can be multiple things. Capitalism can be multiple things. But we typically experience them in one way. Communism doesn't have to be authoritarian, but it has found itself most commonly in authoritarian governments. Capitalism doesn't have to be exploitative, but we've seen it manifest in ways that are exploitative. Right? Fascism doesn't have to be far right, but we've seen it manifest in ways that are far right. But what we understand from the man who created this political ideology is that is when the state and the corporate state come together. So when the government starts wars so that the military industrial complex can make money, that's fascism. When the government forces you to get vaccinated so that big pharma can make money, that's fascism. When the government makes rules and laws that are outside of the scope or interest of the people, but in the interest of profit and of the corporations, that is fascism. We live in a fascist state. Joe Biden is a fascist. Barack Obama was a fascist. George Bush was a fascist. Bill Clinton was a fascist. If Trump was a fascist, he was no more a fascist than anybody else that's ever been president. And we need to understand that through that context. It isn't just a bunch of stupid people who decide they don't want to take the shot. They don't trust the CDC or the government. They don't trust the government for good reason. They don't trust the CDC for good reason. And you haven't given them good reason to change their minds. You don't get to blame people who have realized that they have been taken advantage of for no longer wanting to be taken advantage of. You don't get to do that. We don't get to point that finger.
Yeah.
You know? And so that's the situation we're in. Bill Maher still likes to play this game where he's waking up and realizing the Democrats are full of shit. But then it's these stupid other people that people are going to do what they want to do or what they think is in their best interest. Because they always try to make this, oh, well, you eat food that you still eat hot dogs, but you won't take a vaccine. Well, not only have hot dogs been around for hundreds of years, right? Not only have they been around for hundreds of years.
Oh, you're staticky. You're coming staticky again.
Okay, am I all right now?
Still staticky.
Let's see.
Wait, you're back.
Oh.
Yeah, you're good.
So not only have hot dogs been around for hundreds of years,
yep,
and they've been tested by the FDA or whatever government agencies for at least 100 years. But that's my right to eat mystery meat if I so choose. Nobody is forcing me to eat hot dogs. Nobody is forcing me to eat the pink sludge at McDonald's. But if I should choose to do so, that's my right. Nobody is forcing me to have cigarettes or drink alcohol or vape or any of that. But if that's something that I want to do, I should be able to. But forcing a person to take an experimental, that's the word I was thinking of, experimental vaccine that has at this point been proven that at best, it is no better than natural immunity. And at worst, it is killing people. That's not okay. That's not okay.
It's not. Man, well, I think that's a great place to end it, especially with, the age-old tale that history, I think history not only repeats itself, and when it doesn't repeat itself, it sure does rhyme. And I think you just brought up a great point because people don't think big enough on a macro level. It's just kind of these different levels of consciousness. So people are on kind of the lower surface of whatever is latest and loudest, and Republican versus Democrat, and they're never going to study history. The quickest they'll get to studying history is maybe some little news segment they cover, like a certain part of history to rile you up about. But if you aren't constantly reading, studying what's happened in the world history, you're not going to be aware of this. So you fall for whatever the propaganda of our modern mass media news puts in front of you. They're not going to talk about the 10 other genocides besides Hitler and the Nazis. They're not going to talk about the neo-Nazi, the Ukrainian Nazis. They're not going to talk about the 1930s Germany, Weimar Republic, and Versailles, and a lot of those things that led into what brought up Hitler. They're not going to talk about any of that. And if you don't educate yourself and you just go and get your little dopamine hit from whatever echo chamber you're in, you are really setting yourself up to be walked right into this fascism we're already in. I mean, we're already in a fascism system, like you said, but it's about to get a lot worse. And when you're not aware of things like this, when you get these leftists calling anybody that they disagree with or challenges them on a point, they're a fascist. They don't know what they're being walked into. You are the useful idiot, the pawn that is controlled by the narrative, and you can't even like read history for yourself. So I think you brought up a great point, somewhere we can end it on. And even like I'll give a quick example on the fact that, you know, people like, let's say in corporate America, people know that corporate America is politics, is people, you gotta, do, go to this person for that information and vice versa. And your people are willing to be cutthroat for that next promotion and do all types of stuff where there's maybe tens of thousands of dollars on the line to go up the corporate ladder. So you know that goes on in your job, yet people look at these politicians that sound good, they talk good, and that's where you're at a level where there's millions of dollars at stake. So you don't think they're playing the same political game and the trickery and the fuckery and foolery that you do at your job? Oh no, she just speaks so well. They're for the community. And they don't. You believe all the corporate backstabbing and politics at your job, but when it comes to politics, you just look at it. Whatever they say, it sounds good. You just believe it, and you don't follow the history and the big agenda. And the other thing I mentioned too is that a lot of these politicians, these globalists, they are long-term thinkers. Most people can't even think past the weekend. What are they going to do this weekend or next month? And people are thinking 5, 10, 20 years ahead. They have that on their side along with their own study of history and setting agendas and playing politics. But most people, once again, conspiracy brother, they're not going through here and learning about all the different sides of history. They're not thinking past the weekend. That's the biggest thing, is where you have a lack of awareness as far as forward thinking, as far as world history. And then you're not even a long-term thinker. You're not even thinking about anything past the weekend. You're not thinking about your family's legacy. You got people here, these politicians are just straight psychopaths. But guess what? They're thinking about how to set up their family, their children, their children's children 10, 20 years from now. And I'm sorry, but you ain't going to be able to compete if you can't even study world history, and then you can't even think past what are you going to do for, what are you going to do at the end of the month? So I think it's those two things that is going to keep most people locked into where they're at. I'll kind of land my plane there. Conspiracy brother, anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
No, I think you really hit the points. Overall, you hit the message right on the head. People need to wake up and realize, this show isn't a right or left show. Even though, like your name is conservative, brother, I think it's important to understand that conservatism is your personal views, but that's not a political party, right? That's your view. That's how you feel. That's your ideology for yourself. That's what you look for. And so we have to understand that in order for us to break free from the situation we're in as a nation, we need to try to move away from these two parties and try to form something better that benefits all of us, or at least most of us. You're not going to get anything that is 100% good, but if we can get 75, 70, 60% of our needs met with something new, forming some type of coalition of people who are willing to stand up to the globalists, to stand up to the WEF and these authoritarian governments, to stand up and put control back into the people's hands, then I think, you have to take that chance. Our show is all about enlightening people. It's about trying to expand your thinking and understanding and trying to get you to get out of your comfort zone and break free from these shackles of either of these political parties, either of these ideologies, because neither of them serve us. They're institutions that are only interested in self-perpetuation, and so we need to break free and do our own thing. We need to get rid of them, fire all of them, except there are just a handful of them who are any good. And, I can't really think of too many of them off the top of my head, but even if I had to think, Rand Paul is not perfect, but he's good on a lot of issues. Thomas Massey's good on a lot of issues. And even Democrat, I would have a hard time thinking of a Democrat who I would think is not an authoritarian piece of shit at this moment. You know what I'm saying? I'd rather vote for a person who doesn't care about my health care, my education, quality of food, or whatever. As long as they let me alone with my rights and freedom, then I want somebody to give me health care, to give me a living wage, to give me anything affordable, anything. If that means that you have the power to infringe upon my rights and freedoms. If I've got to pick between the two of those, I'd rather a person with freedom. Because freedom means freedom. So I think I'll finish there. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And I hope you guys look forward to more.
Appreciate it, man. Couldn't have said it any better. Freedom is not free, y'all. It starts and ends with that. Regardless of these labels we have, while I go with conservative, brother, I hold a lot of moderate libertarian views and just want to be left alone. So great show, Conspiracy Brother. We will be back about 2 weeks. And once again, Uncomfy Truths Podcast. Follow us on Rumble, Odyssey, and I think pretty soon we'll be, getting on locals. I think Brighteon's also a good one as well. Censorship free. And we will see y'all next time. Uncomfy Truths. We out.
Peace.
Peace.